Hi, Kathy here from KathysKuteKreations with week 3. And here is the sheet that you should have printed out today. Oops. Right here. If you're looking at it, it looks just like last week, except up here in the corner, right here, it's a half square triangle instead of a square. Also have this sheet, which is my color sheet. And you have 4 different colors, and I'm going to show you. Be sure and match up what it says here about what week 3 is so that you have the right fabric so that you don't think your squares are off. Okay, right. So looking at the fabric, you're going to have your white, which is your background, and one of your light, if that's what you're going to call it, and you're not using this kit. And they're going to be 6 by 6. You have 2 each. And then this one over here, 2 of them, and it is 6.5 by 6.5. That's also considered a medium fabric. And then you have your white rectangle, and then your squares. Directions are telling us to mark our squares because we're going to make our flying geese. So I'm calling these green-winged flying geese. So I just flipped the whole pile over. I'm going to mark it from the top to the bottom diagonal on every one of these. You can use a pencil, you can use a pen, you can use a marker. I use these friction pens. I don't know if I mentioned that in my last one. I don't think I did. I'm using a light one, which is pink. Let's see if we can read it here. It's called Friction, and this one is a Clicker 07, and it's erasable. And actually what will happen as soon as my iron touches it, it will erase. So since it's on the back, it doesn't even make any difference whether you're using a pen, as long as it's a light one, not a dark one, or a pencil, because when you sew over the top of the line, you're covering it anyway, and it's going to be on the underside of your fabric. You're not going to be able to see it once you've gotten it done. Remember that the rule of thumb is that when you mark these, you want your ruler to extend off of the square. And I start right here and make a little mark, make sure it's in this, coming right off that triangle, off the end, as well as here. We'll do every one of them like that. Now, if you're worried about the cutting board, you can take your piece of paper. This is the directions. Lay them down if you don't want to mark your table, because I find the only thing that's going to get it off your table if you do mark it on your table is going to be an eraser, which is that Mr. Clean eraser, and a little bit of scrubbing. So to avoid that, just put it right here on a paper. Then when you go off by accident, which some people do, it's going to be on your paper and it's not going to be on the cutting board. Mark them all up, and then we're going to come back. Okay, so here I've prepared them all, and here's my leftover. So this is 8 of them because we're going to have 8 flying geese. And now we're going to learn how to chain stitch. Didn't show this to you last week, but I'm showing it to you this week for all the new people that are just learning. This saves you thread and time. You just take your time. You're not in a rush, and I'll show you how to do this. So I don't know if I said it last time, but I'm using yellow thread on the top and white thread on the bottom. My thread is for my bobbin, and I get this at my quilt shop in one town over, and it's polyester, 100% polyester, 60 weight. This is what my machine likes for the bobbin. Now, not all my machines like this. The machine, it's my baby lock machines like this thread. My other machines I usually I've used cotton. I don't use this one. But this only comes in either black or white. There's not multicolors of it. I always start, I never start at the corner down here because I find a tendency that it will jam. Now, for some reason, you have to start at the corner. I'll give you a little tip. You can actually squirt a little starch. Go over it with your iron. Now, a starch will not remove this marking, okay? It has to be heat. But if you haven't marked on it yet and all you've done is made it so that it's stiff, go ahead and starch it, iron it. It'll become a little bit stiffer than the rest of your fabric. Then go ahead and mark it and do it. And then it won't go down into your machine. Now, the reason that most of them go down in the machine is, one, this plate here, and I can't get you close enough. Well, I could get you. Hold on one second. I'll get you close so you can see it for all the new people. What you're looking at is this right here. This is an opening big enough for a zigzag stitch so that your needle doesn't hit the plate. Start at the top, which gives me a less chance that it's going to take all of this and try to shove it down in there. Here, it would take that whole thing and try to jam it down in that hole. Saw that my foot came up. That's an automatic function on this machine. Some machines don't have it. You got either a leg lift, which is up underneath your machine, where you can move your leg to the left and it will literally lift up your machine for you. Or you do it by hand. Doesn't make any difference how you do it. Whatever you're going to do and use, you will get used to it, believe me. As soon as you've sewn on that machine for a little while, you'll get used to it. All right, that was the first one. So now don't do anything other than bring your next piece of, bring the next piece over, put it up underneath there, right where that's at. And notice I stopped with my thread decreased already, so it'll just start up. And then I'm gonna go ahead and increase it. Then I'm gonna sew it to the end. And all you do is you're gonna do this for all 8. Oh, I got a little bit of, believe it or not, looked like cat hair there. I don't have black hair and it was long, so it was my kitty cat Leo on the table probably. All right, we're gonna go and get ready for it. So hopefully my hands aren't in the way. I'm gonna go right up here. There we go, start the next one. And you're just continue, do the entire thing. When I get done, I'll come back and I'll show it to you before I cut anything so that you have an idea of what it looks like. I'm on my last one, and then just to give you an idea of what I've been doing. So I started up, and as soon as I've started it, and I have it, it's held now, so it's attached, I pull out my pin, and then if I have to, I take this, I adjust it to the corner down here to make sure it's even, and then I continue. Because as long as my hands are on it, it's not moving, so I don't have to worry about that pin holding it into place. And then right off the end. And now we're going to take a peek at it and see what it looks like. So you can see that they're all attached. So all you do is just take your clippers, which I have just some little snips here, whatever you normally use, and then come in between, go to the thread, clip it, just like that. And then we're going to take them, just do every one of them, clip them all apart. They'll all be stacked up and ready to cut. And then you just cut them one after the other. Okay, that's it. What's it gonna look like when you finish cutting all of them. The next thing we're gonna do, we're gonna go over to the ironing board. We're gonna fold this over, and then I'm gonna iron it so that when it lays flat, the green is on the green side. So the fold over is towards the green, which is called ironing to the dark side. So let's do that. Totally open. And now what we're gonna do, and I'm gonna chain stitch again, so I'm gonna take my square, one at a time. I'm going to put it on here, and I'm going to go from the top down, just like we did before, except now I'm going over 2 pieces of fabric. So this is 3 fabrics when you get finished. You got this, you got the part that's folded over, and that. And we'll go down to the end. So let's do that. All ready to go. We're going to chain stitch these just like we did the last one. And if for some reason you're interrupted, all you got to do is put all this in a bag, set it aside, and then come back to it later, and you'll know exactly where you're at. Okay? So I've got it already anchored. Now I'm going to take my pin out. And here we go. And I've come down off the bump here where I've sewed it. So that's when I'm going to increase my length and then continue. Hopefully my hands aren't in the way. It's very giveable. There we go. And then we just grab my next piece, which I actually have on this table because it's an extension table for my machine. Now I'm down off of that fabric here. We go back up with the length, pull my pen out, and just continue. And you guys can do that same thing. Now you're going to go ahead and cut all of these off just like we did before. And then we're going to stack them up. All laid done, and then we're going to literally set them aside because now we want to make our half square triangles. So we're going to take our 2 6-inch squares. Now, if you want to mark a 1/4 inch all the way around it like a box, you can. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to literally sew it a 1/4 inch. Now, you can do it a couple different ways. Put the light color fabric down on the white fabric or your background, whatever you're using. And I'm going to literally sew all the way around it. And on both blocks, and then I'm going to show you how to cut it out. So when I was brand new at sewing, and I had to go around a square, I always messed it up. I mean, I don't know what it was. I don't know if I was pushing or what I was. So I said to myself, well, the main object is just to make sure that you've got a 1/4 inch all the way around it. It doesn't say how you have to sew it. So if you're more comfortable sewing one end, so I would just start at one end, just like this. Of course, you know, now I made a whole bunch of boo-boos before I did this for myself. So we're going to start it out just like before. I went down and I went up. Make sure my corners match. And do my 1/4 inch. Go all the way to the end. And I'm going to literally come off of the end. Okay, nothing says you can't come off the end. Not a thing. There's no rules. Then I cut my fabric. Turn around. Smooth it out. I went right to the other end. And did my 1/4 inch. This is only one way to do it. This does not mean that you have to do it this way. Right off the edge. Turn around, cut it. I have 2 ends sewn. Just go to the next one. I mean, they're not going to go anywhere. Put my foot down, and it's starting on the other side of the line. So it's not starting here on this side of the line, is on that side. So that automatically will go over itself, which locks it into place. Going right off the edge, just like before. Just like that. Cut it. Flip it over to the other side. Then do the same thing. Now, my fabric has not slipped one bit. That is how I'm going to do it. You, on the other hand, can start just like the picture shows, and it's going to be up to you. Start right on the edge, go all the way to the end. Now, it does not show coming off the end. Actually, it shows you turning as you come to the end of it. They want you to judge a 1/4 inch, but you don't have to judge it. You can mark it with your ruler if you want. And it could be a guess. So let's say, I'm going to pretend I'm going to go here. Now, this is my 1/4 inch. But let's say that I went one more stitch. Just by accident, I went one. I went, oh, turn around. Now, I know it's not a 1/4 inch. All right, take it, back stitch it one time. It's not going to hurt you at all. And then turn. And then we'll go again. I believe I overshot it one. Okay, there's my 1/4 inch. Now I'm going to show you the difference between the two that I just did. I think I have to go back one. Nope, that's good. I'm going to show you the difference between my 2 squares as soon as I get finished. Here's the first square. Looks pretty good. I'm going to bring up the second one. Now, when I came over here, let's see what side it is. So I started here and I went like this and I came down. And look, I got a little white fabric sticking out. Also, when I got to the other end, I got a little pucker going on. It always, I mean always does that when I sew it from one end. Start at one end, go up, over, down, and about. It always ends up doing that for me every single time. I do not know why it does that. I might have to iron it again, make it a little stiffer, but to avoid that, I just do this. Now, this is the easier way if you're going to be doing the chain stitching, because keep in mind, let's say that you had 5 or 6 of these to make. You would just start here, sew to the end, catch the next one, go to the end, catch the next one. Then when you're all done, clip them all, flip them over, start at the end, go down, repeat, 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 cut it off, flip it over, same thing here, flip it over, same thing there. That would be chain stitching. Okay, remember our rule of thumb. Make sure the ruler is longer than the fabric. So you can do one or two things. Line up your ruler. So I have it right on the edge. Right here is where the cross line would be, right there. Down here, the cross line would be here, right here. Put firm, I mean really firm. You're holding down on this ruler. Between here and here, you're firmly holding on to it, but also the back end of my hand is resting on the table. So it's not just the ruler, because the ruler could slip. Even though this ruler actually has these little pads underneath on the other side that are grippers. And then cut it once. And then if you don't have to move it, I will show you what you can do. But here's if you got to move it. You want to line it up. And in my case, I got a little pink on it. But you're going to line it up based on the sewing stitches right there. It's stitched to right there. You're going to put your ruler back on it. You don't want to be sliding your ruler if you don't have to. I'm going to go right here. There's my mark right there. Where my ruler's going to, where my rotary cutter is going to go right across there. I got lots of pressure. It's together on this end, together on this end. And then we're going to cut it again. Now we have 4 half square triangles, just like that. That's a half square triangle right there. So I'm going to set them aside. Now I'm going to get something else that I'm going to show you that you can use. And I'm trying to think if my little pink one is big enough. Let's see if it is. This is a rotary mat, so it goes around in a circle. So when you put your fabric on it, you don't have to lift your fabric up. Now, if you want, you can actually mark your line from one end to the other. It goes right across there. You can do that. And it does suggest you do that on the directions. If you're following along and you're looking at the directions and you're a person that has to have the directions, you just can't do, I want to call it free something is what it's calling. But anyway, if you can't, you got to mark it, then by all means mark it, and then we will cut it. You'll cut it, you'll turn, you go to the next one, line up your lines, just like that. And you got to be able to see your line. You can't just put your ruler on top, because if you do, you've taken up your space. And then cut it. And there you have 4. That's how I build my blocks. Since we're going to make 2 of them, I put the 2 squares in the middle. There you go, right here, 2 of them in the middle. I put 2 on the left-hand side, and I put it down here by the corner. 2 on the top left, top right, and the bottom right. Then I take my flying geese, and I will take 2 of them. And keep in mind that they are flying in. This is flying in. This is the nose. They're flying into the square. So we're going to fly in on the right, fly in on the left. We're going to fly up from the bottom and down from the top. That is how we're going to put them together. So we're going to do each row just like we did last week. So let's do row 1, 2, and 3. Now I will do both of row 1, set them aside, iron them, do both of row 2, set them aside, iron them, and then 3. And remember, when we iron them, we iron the top and the bottom row the same direction, and we do the middle one the opposite direction for nestling sakes. And I'm going to show you a little bit better nestling in this video than I did in the last video. I just got ahead of myself. All right, so here's what we got to do. I didn't trim any of these blocks down. All of these blocks that we just made, these half square triangles, they all have to be trimmed down to 3.5 inches. So, Fort Worth Fabric Studio has a ruler, if you would like to purchase it. If you have gotten any of their boxes or their kits, they did, I think at one time they did give a ruler in a kit. I'm trying to think if they did or not. I can't remember. If they didn't and you want to buy it, they do have it. It's this 6.5 inch block lock. And see the little clouded area right there? All right. So that area on the ruler goes in the part that you have ironed over. For example, like this, and it literally locks into place. So once it's on there, it'll slide up and down. So this is how we figure out how to cut it. So I can't do this one-handed. Hold on one second. I'm going to get a pointer so you can see a little bit better as to what I'm talking about. I always trim the top and the right side. I put the fabric that has been ironed over onto, which is your dark fabric. Then I put the block lock on it so that I can do the right from the left, because I do it the opposite direction. I won't be doing it from the right to the left, and I'm right to the left-handed. If you're left-handed, do it the opposite direction that I'm doing it at. So I go up here and I trim the least amount that I can take off for starters. So I go up, I rotate it, and I go down. Hopefully there we go. We'll just take that off. Alrighty, turn it. And what we're looking for is our 3.5 mark. So I'm going to come down with this. This is what we're looking at, 3.5, 3.5. That's our 3.5 mark. I always, if you've been watching my videos and you know me, I always want to see the line on the fabric, not off of the fabric. That gives me a little bit more. Then you take your cutter and you cut off the next and the next, which is the excess. And that's it. That is how you do it. If you've done it wrong, and please, please, if you're new and you are so unsure of this ruler because it's your first time and you don't want to lose your fabric, because this is limited as to what we've done already, take a practice piece, 2 different colors. Now don't use the same color. And when you do it right, I'm going to turn it so that you can see it. The end up here has both pieces of fabric meeting the corner. Same as here, it meets the corner. If it doesn't meet the corner and it's offset, you did it wrong. So practice, please practice on a scratch piece of fabric, because you can always throw it away if it didn't work. And if you're not one for throwing away your scraps and you are a collector of scraps, that's fine. That will just be a boo-boo and you can keep it and set it aside. Now, the other way to do it, if you don't have this ruler, and lots of people don't have the ruler, so you don't have to run out and buy this ruler, okay? Use a regular ruler. We're going to do the same exact thing we just did. And you don't want to use too big of a ruler, so I have a 5.5 ruler here. And you're going to take your line on the ruler, so you got to make sure that you have a line going through it. And you're going to go down to the minimum, just like before. All I'm trying to do is keep the line along the fabric and the least amount of fabric on both sides to cut off, because I'm trimming, which is just what I did here. Okay. Then I'm going to pick it up. I'm going to turn it. And then I'm going to set that line back down on that fabric again. And I'm looking for 3.5 up at the top. Excuse me, down at the bottom here. And this ruler, which is a Creative Grids, which I really like. Now keep in mind, this is the trimmed side and this is the trimmed side. So we're going to trim that and that. So I go down here to this little area right here. See the little line right here where it goes that way and that way? See that? I put it right on the end, and I want to be able to see it. Remember, I'm the one that wants to see it on her fabric. So I put it so that I can see it. I can see it right here on my fabric. And I don't know if y'all can see the white, but I can see the white on that fabric right there. You see the black right here. I turn it, still holding on to it. And it's 3.5. So I trim it, and I trim it. And now I have 3.5. That is how we're going to do all of these squares. You either use the block lock or you use a regular one, and you're still going to come out with the same exact size of 3.5-inch square. Now go ahead and do all of yours. Take your time. And like I said, if you're new, practice, practice, practice. Even practice on a regular ruler if you would like. All right, and I'll see you back when you get them all done, and then we'll rebuild our blocks. We'll go from there. Now we're ready to put these together. I'm glad I came back and explained that. Now all of these are 3.5 inches. These are 6.5 by 3.5. Well, we know they have to be 3.5 because they have to fit our squares up against them. And this blocks is 6.5 going this direction, so that would have to be 6.5 to match that up. Alrighty, I'm back with our first nestling. So I put my little square up against my flying geese, and all of these, remember, they went to the dark side, and these went to the dark side. So when you fold it over, you have them matching. Hopefully, there we go. And you put them together, and that's how we're going to sew them, so they can match up. You can put a pin if you'd like, or not. This is where we have to mark all of the tips, because these are going into our middle square. So you're going to find out where they cross, the two pieces of fabric where they sew, and then go right above it and draw your line. So that will be 1/4 inch on your fabric. You got to do it to every one of these. We will do it to that, but after this one is finished and we've sewn them together, that's when we'll mark them. Because remember now, to iron them open, we're going to put heat on it, and it will make our pin mark disappear. This kind of pin. I stopped real quick to show you how I pinned it. So I went from the left to the right. You can do right or left. And then I went in the middle and pinned it. And then I'm going to go ahead and sew it down. I wouldn't stop now and show you, but I want to show you how we did not lose our tip. Do you see that? I stopped. I ironed this open so I could show you we didn't lose our tip. It's still there because of our marking and our sewing. Let me go ahead and do the other side. I've only done the one side here. Actually, I've done both. They're the same way. Here's the other one. No tip lost. Right there. Still there. Okay. So what is our issue? Looking at that, this is what I see as my issue right here. Me seeing this. That's an issue for me. Because no matter how much I take and I push this over, I can't get that covered. So I'm going to trim that. I'm going to show you how I trim that. All right. And it only needs to be that much right there. See, I have the, and you're thinking, well, wait a minute, you're going to cut real close to your finger. No, I'm not. I'm going to use the ruler to put pressure right there in that spot. Let me set up this camera. It's a bit blown up. I'm keeping the camera here. I'm like messing up my table, but that's okay. So you take it and you push it and you push it and line your fabric right along here. Literally line it up right there, and you can still see that little bitty bit. So you cut that off, just a teeny weeny bit right there. And that will be enough. And when you go to lay it down, let me back up the thing here. When you lay this down, you're going to put this on it, because remember, it's going to go like this. So we're going to pin it here. I'm going to end up with everything on the floor here in a second. You're going to take it like this. Now, this is the way I do it. I'm going to pin it on this side, come back, pin it on this side right here. Now, you don't have to have it perfect. If your fabric isn't touching and it's just a smidgen, when I say a smidgen, to me that's a smidgen. That's okay, because remember, you got 1/4 inch. You take your hands and I push against my pins. Make sure that's on there. Push against my pins. And I'm going to put a pin right in the middle there. Right here. Okay. If you feel like you need another pin over here, put another pin over here. You can't, I'm telling you, you cannot have too many pins in your project. You should have seen me the first time that I attempted to do a Drunkard's Path block. I had somebody show me how to do it, but I'm going to tell you what, that was like trying to learn another language. There was no way I was getting it. And when they did it, because they had already been doing it for so long and they had done it flawlessly, I could never get it done. Never. It would not work. And I had pin upon pin, and I went real slow with my sewing machine, because, you know, you don't want to be breaking anything with your sewing machine. So it took me forever, because every time I moved along, I had to end up moving out my pin. And I must have had, and my square wasn't even that big, as a matter of fact. I don't think my square was maybe 3 inch or 4 inch to make it. I must have had a dozen pins. And when I say a dozen, I'm going to show you about what I'm talking about. I'm going to show you based on this right here, how I did it. And this is no exaggeration. I'm telling you, I am being truthful with you. Because if you know, Drunkard Path is it's a curve. And this is exactly, I want you to see how close these pins are. And I'm not lying. This is, and you can get, look at this. That is, I mean, if you can imagine having that, a whole, this, like a curve with all these pins in it. And all I did was move my sewing machine. I get a couple of stitches in there. I stop and pull this pin out, pull that pin out. Get a couple stitches, get right up to that edge of that. Even if I had to roll my wheel to get right to the edge of that pin and then pull that pin out and go. I mean, it was loaded with pins. I was afraid that I was going to have so many holes in it that it was going to be a mess, but it turned out. But it's like, oh my gosh, it will take me forever to create this block. But eventually I figured out how to do it without all those pins. But see, people aren't giving you shortcuts and ways that they do it, which is very hard for somebody that's new and has no idea what they're doing. I mean, I tried it all on my own. I couldn't even get it. It never worked on my own. I took a class. They showed me how to do it, but that didn't really help me. So I had to figure it out all on my own to avoid putting a million pins in it. And I think I've only made one. I don't even think I made a whole entire quilt. It might have been a table runner or something. But haven't made one since. But I do have the actual, I believe, the die for my AccuQuilt. So I find that when you're sewing, you do what you know first. And then when you want to tackle something new, you take it upon yourself to learn something new. Even if you can't figure it out and you end up giving up, you can always come back to it. I don't think I've had too many things that have curves in them. Although I have perfected the curve when I make my cozy bows because I don't like the way the ends are squared off. I hate that where you got to take that, all that fabric on the inside and put it towards the outside. It is very, very difficult. But I also find that the bowl looks so much prettier if it has a curved corner than a square corner. So I just wanted to come back and say that real quick. So that's why I'm sewing and talking. Row 1 and 2, and now I'm going to work on row 3. You do also. Are you also do 3? Oh my gosh, I'm really liking the colors. Look at that. Alrighty, let's put our rows together. Ooh, and don't forget now, when we put them together, we're going to nestle. Not only are we going to mark the tips, but we're going to nestle these edges right here. Time for nestling 101. This is going to the left, and this one's going to the right. Put your two fabrics up together. And just like this, they're going to go across. Get it working here for me. We're going to make sure that this gets right up against there. See that? Up against the top. And we're going to put a pin in, and I'm going to put a pin in the left-hand side because I do not want this fabric here to get bumped by the sewing machine needle and thrown over to the other direction. We're going to nestle this. So go up here to the tip top. I'm going to nestle this with this one. Now don't put your needle like right there. If you put your needle here, then your sewing machine won't get beyond that. So come out a little bit here and put your needle there so that the sewing machine can grab it right in here. And we're going to do it all the way down, just like that. And then we're going to pin this. But before I pin that in the middle there, I'm going to go down and I'm going to nestle this side over here the same way I did the last one. Put it up against there, just like this. Make sure it's nestled. And then I don't want the bottom to get flipped over, so I'm going to put my pin on the bottom. Then I'm going to go back to the middle here and make sure I pin it. We'll pin it right here in the middle, like that. Then if you need to pin on this side, take it and pin it. Oops, I got too many pins out. Come over here, do the same thing. And then go to the end. It's going to also need to be nestled. And if you've ironed it correctly towards the dark side, it nestles automatically. You don't have to re-iron it or anything. Okay, it looks good. There we go. And then we'll put a pin right here, just because. And then we're going to sew it. There we go with week 3, our 2 blocks called, believe it or not, Sour Star. I'm not sure if the reason it said sour is because of these lemons or not. Your guess is as good as mine. But I hope everybody enjoyed this video. Give it a thumbs up if you did. And I will see you next week. And you can join me then for the final finishing of putting it together so we can take a look at our table runner. I hope everybody had fun. And give me a thumbs up if you haven't. If you'd like to make a comment, by all means do. If you haven't joined my channel yet, click on that little bell so that you can get notifications. But you can only do it if you join. All right. So I'll see you all next time. Till then, bye-bye.